Welcome back to Boats Plus. We've got a great tips and tricks video for y'all today. We're going to be going over navigational markers and what each one means. We've got Dwayne Rodgers from the SC Department of Natural Resources with us to show us what they mean. Dwayne, thank you for having us out.
Anytime, it's a pleasure being here. What we're going to be going over today is, navigational markers, which you'll see on just about every South Carolina lake. And this will kind of give you an idea of what to look for, how to, approximate distance you want to stay off of it or anything like that. So it's just a little quick video to kind of give you all the down and dirty of what we do in aids to navigation for the state of South Carolina. And back here we got a few buoys set up. Obviously you'll notice in the background we have quite a few buoys. This is where we stockpile all of our buoys that we keep on surplus to maintain the state.
Okay, Dwayne, what's the first buoy that we're going to go over?
Okay, the first buoy that we're going to talk about today is probably one of the most common ones you'll see in high traffic areas. It's going to be this one right here. This one, obviously, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's a no wake buoy, and these buoys, and you'll notice in the background there's some that's smaller than others. These are model 29s. We typically use these on the coast just because they don't sink down in the water as much. They float more on the surface, and they don't have as much drag on them in that tidal water where it kind of ebbs and flows, twice in a day's time. So this one is a model 29, and it's an idle speed, no wake buoy. So a lot of things in my past experiences, I've seen people when I've stopped them in the years past when we were out there working. People don't understand that. They think if they slow down that they're doing okay. Technically not. If you're casting a wake out the back of your buoy, you're still going too fast. It says idle speed. So what I would suggest is when you get into an idle speed area, bump it into neutral and bump it into gear just long enough to give you propulsion, and that is idle speed. Anything more than that is throttle. So just a little friendly reminder about this one. And usually you'll see these, you may see two of these in the starting of a wake zone, and you'll go a short ways or a long ways depending on the wake zone itself. You'll get to another two of them, and that's where the wake zone stops. And like on the intercoastal waterway, like me and Zach was talking earlier, there's certain sections down there that's got multiple no wake zones in it, and you'll go out of one and get into another one, and you get confused after you've been through a few of these at one time. So anyhow, that's the first one. That's idle speed, no wake zone.
That's the most common one that you're going to see out on the water.
Well, it depends on what body of water you're on, but this is typically one of the most common ones you'll see. Between this one and the third one we have there, which is a hazard buoy, and we'll get to that one in a second, those are going to be the two most common buoys that you're going to see.
And how far, so the idle speed technically starts at the buoy, but what do you recommend people slowing down before they get to it?
Okay, the idle speed, that's a good question, Zach. Where it says no wake, if your wake actually enters, say you got two of these buoys side by side, and obviously they'll be a lot further apart so the boats can travel too, but just imagine this buoy and that buoy being the start of a wake zone. You want to slow down your boat to where that wake that you're causing does not enter beyond these buoys, if that makes any sense. So you don't just rock and roll at 80 miles an hour right up to this no wake buoy and then all of a sudden slam it down in neutral, because your wake's going to travel a lot further into that wake zone, which could cause damage to other people's boats, docks, whatever may be in the water at that time. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that is. Some people just think that it starts there, but you actually slow down before you get to the idle speed buoy. Don't run right up to it. That's a common mistake we see people make all the time. All right, what's our next?
I'm going to back up on one other thing, and just y'all, for the audience out there, remember, you're responsible for your wake. And I'll get to that in a second about a sign that we actually have with our department that we give to people. So even if you don't slow down at an appropriate time, or you're going in the wake zone and you're plowing or whatever the case may be, and you cause damage, you could be responsible for the damage. So if somebody gets your boat registration number, gets that off of it, reports it to us, and there's an investigation done, just know that you could be responsible for any kind of damage that's being done to anybody's property.
All right, our next one is going to be?
The next buoy you'll see, this is an exclusion buoy, and it also says boats keep out. This is usually in swimming areas. Usually, or you may see these around water intakes or something like this, where it's a protected area to where they don't want any boat traffic in there. We have quite a few of these out now down at the towers at the dam on Lake Murray. It's a temporary exclusion buoy. They're doing a lot of construction on the dam. So, you'll just pay attention. If it's got the cross in the middle and it's self-explanatory, boats keep out, that is an exclusion buoy. So that's pretty self-explanatory.
Pretty self-explanatory right there. Don't keep out of it. Don't
Yep.
go near it.
Yeah.
All right, and now our next one you said is another very common buoy that you'll see.
Yeah. This one is a close tie with the no wake buoy. This one is your hazard buoy, and a lot of bodies of water. Lake Murray has quite a few of them. You'll see a lot of these on Lake Marion, Lake Moultrie, places like that. Rivers, stuff like that, where there's stumps, there's rocks, or like right now with Lake Wateree being down as low as it has been. I think the water's coming up now, but with it being as low as it has been, people call us quite often and say, hey, there's a stump sticking up that, hey, we need a marker on it. But typically, we don't mark them at low levels. We mark them when they're at full pond, and depending on the depth of water between the hazard and the top of the water is is a guideline that we go by before we'll put out a hazard, to let people know that there is a hazard in the area. So if you're coming across the body of water and you see a couple of these clumped together, my suggestion is give a lot of right of way to these buoys, because if these buoys for some reason or another have drifted off, or somebody has hooked to them, which they do quite often, and they will move these buoys, which is a violation of the law. You can't do that. So just understand that give this a lot of caution. When you're coming up to these things, I would suggest at least 100 feet. That's pretty good rule of thumb. But these are your primary concerns as far as boat owners, boat operators, because these things, not these buoys, but the stuff under the water, will destroy your lower units in your boats.
And what is that depth that y'all usually put these out to? It really depends.
It kind of depends. We usually like to go 6 to 8 feet, because we know that the water could come down 2 or 3 feet, and that's just a general rule of thumb. There's nothing in writing that pins us down and says we got to do this, but that's typically what we look at. We take into consideration the water level what it is currently, because obviously we know, like when Lake Murray, when they draw down this lake in the winter months, there is a lot of hazards out there, and we just don't have enough gear to mark every hazard. And when the water may be down 15 feet. So in the summertime, when you're boating, there's 15 foot of water above that used to be hazard, and you got plenty of water, no matter what size boat you operate.
Exactly. And just to make sure y'all see this, they're both diamond shaped, but this one has a cross in the middle. The keep out has a cross. Just the hazard is a regular diamond with nothing in the middle. So don't get those two confused. You can go around these areas. Just be careful. You cannot go in these areas.
That's correct. And it's self-explanatory. I mean, these are our buoys. So it's got South Carolina Department of Natural Resources on here. So if you see one of those things, a lot of times, a lot of people they'll buy one themselves to kind of protect their cove. That also is against the law, or violates the state statute. You can't put anything out there yourself. This is regulated and mandated by us. So if you want a buoy in your cove and you feel like it fits the criteria, then obviously you can call in and request an investigator will investigate your case, and they will ride out there and take pictures, and they will shoot distances and make sure you fall within that criteria. And if you don't, don't be upset that you don't get approved for a no wake zone or a no wake buoy in your cove.
Great. And what is this? This is the same idle speed, yes. But where would this one be where that one's not?
A lot of times we will put these on, because anytime you're within 100 feet of a man-made, 50 feet of a man-made object in the water, and some of the law has changed. Now you can't be more than idle speed at 100 feet, depending on what body of water you're on. So for a prime example, if you're going under a bridge, you know, the pylons are usually close enough to where you're within 50 or 100 feet of the pylon, so you're going to have to go out of speed. So we will actually put these on the pylons itself, and to let people know that, hey, you're coming into a wake zone, and usually when you get to the other side of the bridge, you, depending on the situation, you can pick it back up. But just know that this is a reminder. Another example you'll see these used is in tight tributaries where there's not enough room for buoys. There's not enough distance for boat traffic to travel through and put our buoys out. We will put these like on trees or pylons or something on the banks to kind of let you know that, hey, you're coming into a no wake zone. And there'll be other ones on the other end to let you know, the people coming from the other way, to know that you're coming into a no wake zone, so you know where it stops and starts.
Very good. Now there are a few buoys that we don't have here. Can you go over those and what those mean as well?
Well, the buoys we have present, the signs is, we have two other signs that we currently don't have here. We're ordering some signs, and the other ones, it basically talks about the idle speed and talks about your responsibility. That sign right there, there's a difference. If it says idle speed, no wake, it's exactly that. It's idle speed, no wake. But we have another one that looks similar. It reminds people that, hey, you're in a congested area. It may not be a no wake zone, but it's reminding you as a boater or a boat operator that you are responsible for your wake. So if you're in that area and you, like I was saying earlier, if you cause damage to someone's property, you know, you could be held liable because, you know, obviously, especially if they have a sign out there that's telling you that, hey, you're responsible for your wake. So we'll have that. And there's another sign that we're having made now because we're having some areas on Lake Wateree, as I mentioned earlier. You know, there's some development going in the back of a cove, but in this cove there's I think they counted 200 stumps in this area. So what we have kind of figured the best way to mark it, because it does get narrow and it would limit boat traffic and stuff, instead of marking every one of those 200 stumps, is we're going to mark with these signs, and they're actually, those are 4-foot signs, and the signs that we have ordered are 6-foot signs, so they're as tall as me, tall and wide. So they will actually be high hazard areas or hazard area to let you know as a boater or a boat operator that, hey, you're in a high hazard area. So they should be pretty obvious. I mean, because like I said, we won't have enough room to put buoys out there, so those things work really well in those congested areas. Yes.
Will it have the diamond shape?
It will be a bigger sign, but it will have this on there, and it will have the SCDNR on there. And just know the diamond without the X is a hazard. This is an exclusion. And if we had an exclusion sign, it would also say boats keep out. So you will never have a sign that don't look like these buoys. So it will explain, like here, explains idle speed, no wake. It will explain everything on the sign just as it does on the buoy. Like the sign, here's the buoy. So if we had an exclusion sign, it would say the same thing as this, boats keep out.
And it would have an X.
And it would have the X in the middle of the diamond. These are the ones to really be concerned about, because this is what will cost you money out of your pocket, replacing lower units or boat hulls and getting new gel coat refinished and stuff like that. So these are the ones that I highly suggest giving a lot of right of way to, is these right here. Remember the orange diamond, and it doesn't say hazard on it, but that's what you're gonna see.
It's a hazard. Just
It's
avoid it. Don't go around. Don't go through it. Just avoid it.
Now, one other thing I want to add. A lot of people has asked questions about, well, how do we see the buoys at night? Okay, these things have reflective tape. That's the whole back of that sign is reflective. This is reflective. This is reflective tape here. You have reflective tape here also. Any ambient light whatsoever or any light whatsoever is going to make these things stand out. One other thing that we need to be clear on is, you as a boat operator, you're responsible for maintaining a proper lookout. So just keep that in mind when you're operating at night and you're running, and I'm not bad-mouthing anyone here, but if you're running a high rate of speed and you're not familiar with the area, just don't outdrive your visual abilities.
Be careful. Don't just use your graphs to drive around. Pay attention.
Yeah.
Use your eyes to look, and that's really important on bodies of water that you're not familiar with, or maybe you are familiar with it. It's still important to just pay attention to what you're doing.
Well, and you just hit on a good topic. I mean, even if you are familiar with a new body of water, we're putting out new wake zones all the time. We're putting out new hazards all the time. I mean, there might be a tree that falls over in the lake, and it's there, and we might have to put a hazard on it, and you might not even be aware of it. So things do change quite often. So we're always getting calls, for the aids and navigation section for DNR to go out and look at potentially putting hazard buoys out on this particular thing or that particular thing, and we're always getting more of these just because more people are using the lakes now. And if a new marina goes in and it's got fuel pumps there, obviously those things are high priority as far as being protected. So usually we'll establish a new wake zone for those kind of things.
Yeah, great. Now you were talking before about how these buoys can be moved or maybe they break free. If you find a buoy that may be washed up on shore, what should you do and who should you contact about that?
Yeah, that's a good topic. When a buoy has broke loose or you realize that a buoy is missing or something like that, or it needs to be reported. So what we suggest, and I'm gonna refer to my phone because I've got the number saved in here. This is our investigations office in Charleston. And
now this is for South Carolina's Department of Natural Resources. Every state will have their own person to contact, but this is for South Carolina. So
this is for South Carolina. This is just for South Carolina. This is and it's one of our buoys now. Now it has to have our logo on it because there are a lot of buoys out there that people are putting out nowadays, and you'll see the orange mooring balls, and they put those things at the end of their dock so it lets boaters know that that's, hey, if you come within this ball, you're too close. Actually, technically, those are illegal, and a lot of the energy companies don't want those out there, and a lot of the energy companies will actually come out and take those.
Now, what about the mooring buoys that are in like Charleston Harbor and all that?
There are designated areas in the state to where they are designated mooring areas, and you can only moor your boat in those areas and leave it unaccompanied. Those are the only places in the state, and Charleston Harbor is a big one right there at the marina.
So just don't report those, but that's not...
Yeah, don't report those.
Yeah.
So getting back to it, let me pull this back up. All right, the number you want to contact, anything that has to do with aids to navigation. If you want to report a buoy washed up on your beach, or if you want to report a buoy missing, or if it's damaged, it's submerged, or whatever, the number is 843-953-9378, and that is to our investigations office. Aids to navigation falls under SEDNR investigation section. And just be mindful when you call in these complaints and stuff. There's 4 of us. There used to be 2 of us, but now there's 4 of us. We cover the entire state, and we have approximately 2,700 buoys that we maintain. So just be understanding, and just understand it may take us a little bit of time to get there. It's not that we're ignoring you. It's just that
y'all have
we have a lot to do. And we're trying to make sure we try to service every body of water at least twice a year, so we make sure everything's maintained, everything's up to date, stuff like that. So just be patient. If you don't see it in a day or two, it might take us a couple of weeks to get to it. It just depends on the circumstances.
But it's on the list, and they will get to it. Just be patient. Everybody's human. It takes time to get things done.
Yeah, Miss Stacy actually has a running maintenance, open maintenance request list for us. Anytime somebody calls in with a complaint, a missing buoy or whatever for aids to navigation, it goes on a maintenance request list. And so we try to keep that down as much as possible. So we're really on top of this section that actually works hard to keep the waterways of South Carolina safe.
Safe waterways, safe boating.
That's right.
That's what
safe
we're all
boating,
here for.
Safe waterways. And if you haven't already, if you're a new boater and you haven't, please, it's not a law, but please, we've talked about this before we did this interview. Take a boater safety course. It could make all the difference in the world.
Yep. Especially with so many people out there on the water today, you just need to know what everything means on the water, what to do in situations. It's a great way to have a safe day out on the water. There you are. Those are the most common navigational buoy markers that you're likely to see while out on the water. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you to Dwayne and the SC Department of Natural Resources for helping us make this video.
You're welcome.
If you liked it, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Follow us on social media, and we'll see you next time.